What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're talking wildcards for game week 7. So I'm going to talk about 7 versus 8, why you might want to wait, why you might want to just go right now. Play a shortlist. Obviously, we'll do some draft tinkering as well. And the key questions that you have to ask yourself when you're building this wildcard, because there's some big names that you might have to consider dropping depending on how you want to make the draft. So if you enjoy it, do give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm going to look at game week 7 versus 8, right? Why you might go for one over the other. I'm not looking at game weeks further down the line, game week 12, 14, 15, whenever you might be thinking about wildcarding, because things will change quick. I mean, look at the community, right? Recently, everybody wanted 3 premiums, Ronaldo, Lukaku, Salah. Now no one's talking about it, and that's only like in the space of a week or two, right? So things change pretty quickly. So look, wildcard always depends on your team. The reason a lot of people are looking now is they want to make big overall changes. They want to jump on the Chelsea kind of fixture swing and stuff like that as well. So that's why we're looking at game week 7 versus 8. There's a few reasons why you might want to go right now. One of them is price increases. We've already seen some increases for Chelsea defenders. We might see another one before the end of the week. Players like Luke Shaw might go down in price as well. And so there could be some big fixture swings. Like, I've put together a draft already for my own team for game week 8, and there's not, depending on which way I go, there's not a huge amount of money left over, and there is a chance that I'd be priced out of that team by game week 8. Whether or not that makes me hit the button this week, I don't know, but it is something to consider. Liverpool versus Man City is quite a big one, because I think when people wildcard, you really should be looking at Manchester City players. We'll talk later on about whether you have 1, 2 or 3, but they play they play Liverpool this week, and it's an away game as well, so it's going to be fairly difficult. Of course, they could come away with some points, and you wouldn't necessarily want to bench them, but the chances are you're taking out players with better fixtures this week for, yes, a stronger team, of course, but playing in a difficult fixture. So I wouldn't necessarily want to bring in too many more Man City players this week than I already had, to be honest. Obviously, injuries is a big concern. Like, if you look at my team here, right, this is my team for this week. So potentially I've got, I mean, Basuma doesn't matter. He's getting benched anyway. But Rafinha, Ayling and Shaw are all out. And if I'm going to wildcard in game week 8 anyway, there's no way I really want to be taking a -8 hit, right? I just wildcard this week instead. So if Rafinha was ruled out, and again, this has happened the last 2 weeks and he's ended up playing, so we'll have to wait and see. But if Ayling was ruled out and Shaw was ruled out, I could make one transfer and just play Veltman, but it might be the thing that triggers me into activating the wild card, just because I don't want to go in with Veltman and like one transfer on a defender when I could just have a completely new defence. But again, it depends, because if I want a load of Man City players, they're playing Liverpool anyway, so they're not really going to score me a huge amount of points. Plus as well, and this is definitely one thing I would say, is will you weaken your game week 7 team? So when I build the drafts later on, like when I do a bit of tinkering, which players you can have in, etc., like, would it? There is a question mark over whether to keep Antonio, whether to keep Jimenez, whether to keep Sarr, and all 3 of those have got good fixtures this week. The Man United players, I'm not too concerned about. I know everybody wants to switch them to Chelsea, and I don't think that's a bad move. But if Ronaldo, Shaw, and Greenwood all play this week, they're perfectly fine to keep. There's no major rush to get rid of them. I know everyone now thinks that Ronaldo's awful and Luke Shaw just is never going to keep a clean sheet this season, but they're all fine to keep. And if it lets me also have Jimenez versus Newcastle, which is like a top 5 fixture to have, in my opinion. Antonio versus Brentford's good, and Sarr versus Leeds. They're all decent. So I don't really want to wildcard this team, because I think when I build my Game Week 8 wildcard team, which is similar to what I would do this week, right? Because you've got to think further ahead. The team you do this week is not going to be massively different to one you do next week. I think it would weaken my team, which is why I personally don't want to activate it. But injuries and price increases might make me do it. And obviously you've got international break as well. So between game week 7 and 8, there's an international break, which it's not necessarily a massive advantage to wildcard them, but it does give you more time to think about it. Some people would say that's a disadvantage because you'll overthink it, but you get 2 weeks to think about it, and also you can react to any international break injuries or suspensions or anything that comes back because of the whole COVID thing. Hopefully that'll all be sorted and players will be able to go away and play and then come back, but we just don't know right now. So that's another thing to consider, but it shouldn't be a major part of your thinking, in my opinion. The rest of them should be, though. Okay, so here's some key questions you're going to have to ask yourself when you're building the team, right? So one is, do you want to drop Trent Alexander-Arnold? So again, if I just bring the team up here and we look at the fixtures, I can probably make this a little bit bigger. If you're wildcarding this week, then you've got Man City at home, then Man United away in game week 9. And I know everyone's going to say Man United are rubbish, Liverpool will win that, but it's an away game, it's going to be difficult. I could see Man United scoring at least 1 in that game, and obviously that would take away the clean sheet. Watford away is nice. Brighton at home's pretty nice as well, but West Ham away and Arsenal at home. I mean, these fixtures here, this set of 6 fixtures, you could, if at any point in the season you're going to get rid of Trent, this could be the time to do it. Personally, I probably won't. In fact, I'm pretty certain I'm going to keep him on my wild card, especially if I do it in 8, because obviously it's Watford away. And I think these fixtures here are just really nice. So as a long-term pick that you don't want to mess with, given how good he is from an attacking point of view as well, I probably would just want to keep him. So you can ask yourself that question. You can make a pretty nice, like very value filled team without Trent. Like you'd have 2 Man City defenders, 2 Chelsea defenders, and you wouldn't even necessarily have to play them all every single week, right? Because you could have a bunch of really good attackers as well. So there is a case to be made. I just don't think that I will be doing it. I think the fixtures aren't that bad. And then the run afterwards is pretty good. And we know he's nailed, right? He's very attacking and he plays for a team that's going to keep quite a few clean sheets. So I don't really personally see me dropping Trent. The 2 7.5 million forwards is really interesting because if you're only going to go with one of Ronaldo or Lukaku, and I think most people will, then a lot of us, right, again, going back to my team, we've had Antonio and Jimenez, we've had Bamford in there, we've had Calvert-Lewin, we've had Wilson right at the start of the season. Now it looks like those players are suddenly going out of our thinking, and there is a case to be made to only have 1 or potentially 0. So I think on here I've got, I've not got it, but you could even drop Antonio. Like if you look at his fixtures, right, they've been brilliant. And again, I would want him for game week 7, which is why I don't really want a wild card. But then you've got an away game against Everton, a home game against Spurs, and look, I know Spurs have been poor so far, but I don't expect West Ham to go and walk all over them. Villa's not too bad, but again, it's an away fixture. Then it's Liverpool, then it's away to Wolves, then it's away to Man City. These fixtures just aren't fantastic. They're okay, and I think if you wanted to keep Antonio, I'm sure he'll get a few points in these, but it's not a brilliant fixture, and even then, Brighton at home's okay, but then it's Chelsea at home. So I would argue that this fixture run is actually quite tough for West Ham, so there is a big consideration over whether you even have 1 7.5 million or even 2, right? I don't think right now, the way I'm looking at it, that I would go with 2. You've got Tony at Brentford, obviously, they're doing really well. He's the penalty taker, he's going to play every single game, he's really good value. Armstrong as well has got good fixtures, so I think right now, if I was going in with a wildcard, I'd possibly only have 1. I think in game week 7 it's difficult because you don't want to get rid of Antonio before Brentford at home, but I think if you were wildcarding in game week 8 you would consider it, and again that is one of the reasons why I don't personally want to use it this week. 2 versus 3 premiums, I've said all along, I think 2 premiums is the play. Salah +1, Ronaldo or Lukaku. Fixtures matter. Look at Lukaku's returns recently. He got 2 goals against Villa and nothing I think in the other 3 games, right? Liverpool, Spurs and Man City. Now don't get me wrong, Chelsea still put 3 past Spurs, so maybe it was a bit unlucky. 10 men versus Liverpool, I get it, but fixtures matter. So Ronaldo's got tough fixtures coming up. I personally would just swap into Lukaku, save that extra bit of money. I wouldn't want to carry him. I think you can. These players only really provide value when they're being captain. I think unless Ronaldo or Lukaku get you 2 goals every week, like if you've got both of them, I feel like you really need 2 returns most weeks. Otherwise, it just hurts. Like I've got this week, if I've got Ronaldo, Jimenez, Antonio, I'm not really worried about Lukaku at all, if I'm completely honest. He could do better than Ronaldo. He could be a better captain. We'll talk about that later on in the week. But I just don't think you need the 2 forward premiums, but that's just me. Which goalkeeper we'll talk about in a minute, because obviously a lot of us have got Sanchez, Ramsdale's now on the radar, Sarr now assist king as well, and which 6.5 million midfielders. There's loads to choose from. So I've got Rafinha and Sarr on my current team. Look at Saka. People are going to be looking at Smith Rowe now. You've got Ben Rama still. You've got Gray, Decore at Everton as well. There's loads of options. It's just it's a case of which ones you go for and how many. And I think you could probably have 3, maybe even 4 in your wildcard team. So there's lots of questions to be asking yourself, lots of things to go through, and we're going to talk about that now in a sec when we tinker. But let's just quickly talk about the goalies. Okay, so we're going to do the draft in just a sec. I really want to quickly talk about goalkeepers though, because I think it's an important decision, because you don't want to have to keep changing it. Now I do think, depending on the way you set up your team, you could possibly go with 2 playing goalkeepers, 2 4.5 million keepers, because it just feels right now that there's just so much money. I think the only thing that would make me regret doing that now is if a bunch of kind of 7 to, I don't know, £10 million midfielders suddenly become options, but I just don't see where that's coming from. I think Greenwood is a long-term rotation risk. Jota is really good value, but there is going to be a risk of minutes when Firmino's playing. Obviously, Grealish is a nice option, but outside of that, like Torres, are people really going to go for him when he's, not going to play every single week? Like, it just gets tough, and I just think because they're not real big options right now. Pulisic, I mean, no one's going for him. Havertz, is he going to play every single week? And most people are going double Chelsea defence and Lukaku. So there's just no interest in midfielders around that price right now that I think a lot of money could be saved. So going for 4.5 million keepers might be the play, but it depends how you set up your team. Let's talk as if we're going for one. I still think Sarr, and basically that could be any 5 million plus keeper, is just a bit too expensive. I do like Wolves fixtures in the short term, or maybe even the medium term up until like game week 14. But I think when you pick a goalkeeper, you are pretty much picking them right up until the next wild card. Very rarely are you going to want to make that transfer. So it doesn't really matter what the short-term fixtures are. And I think Wolves will get enough clean sheets where he's a good option. But for most teams, you're probably going to want to spend that money elsewhere. Like if it was Sarr plus a 4 million, I feel like 2 4.5s or a 4.5 and a 4.6 might be slightly better. Sanchez has done nothing wrong. I'm recording this and it's going to go out before the Crystal Palace game. But he just doesn't get a huge amount of saves. Right now it feels like it's either 2 points or 6 points, and that's it. Whereas with Ramsdale getting a few more saves, I think Arsenal defence is looking better. The partnership with White and Gabriel, and obviously you've got Tomiyasu now, and we know that Tierney's good as well. Like Arsenal was starting to click a little bit. Now, I think that was always likely to happen. I did say a few weeks ago, like it's nice to laugh at them, but they're going to turn it around, and they have been so far. I know they conceded to Spurs, but it was only one goal, right? So I think Ramsdale right now is looking pretty nailed on. I put a tweet out the other day, or yesterday, asking Arsenal fans what they thought, and everyone pretty much said like Leno's just gone. They even think that there's a chance Leno might get sold in January. So as long as Ramsdale doesn't make a whole bunch of massive mistakes in the next few games, he should be pretty much nailed. So I think right now he's probably the one I would go for. Raya at Brentford's going to get you save points in the odd clean sheet. I don't think he's a bad pick by any stretch, but I do think if I was picking right now, I'd probably go to Ramsdale. There's nothing wrong with Sanchez whatsoever, but I think I would just jump on the Arsenal hype and just over the season hope they would get a few more clean sheets, and Ramsdale might get a few saves as well. But it's close. Again, if you said to me you wanted to keep Sanchez, I wouldn't really have an issue with that, but I think I'd go right now for Ramsdale. Okay, so we'll just start from this base, right? I'm not saying this is necessarily the draft that I would go for 100% if I was wildcarding this week. Like, people change their mind, right? There's a long time until the deadline, and I'm sure Saturday is going to be absolutely chaos on the deadline stream. But this is like a nice base. This is kind of your standard 3-4-3, so you can play Rafinha, Salah, Saka, and Mbeumo in most weeks. And you've still got your two 7.5 million strikers. I think Jimenez's fixtures are pretty good. Like I wouldn't really react to that goal yesterday, but Newcastle at home, Villa, Leeds away, and Everton at home with Palace away. West Ham at home, Norwich away, Burnley at home. Like, that's a nice run of fixtures. Potentially, you could just set him, forget him for that whole time. Like, now he's scored as well. That's a lot of relief. Maybe that's some pressure off his shoulders. I don't know. I think Wolves are creating enough chances, right? And he's nailed. No matter what happens on the wings with Trincao, Traore, etc., it's very rare that Jimenez is ever going to miss out. He's pretty much a 90-minute man and on penalties. Again, I'm not saying I would do this on a Game Week 8 wildcard, but if you wanted to stick to the two 7.5s up front, then this is the kind of formation that you could go for. And you get the choice. So one thing I've not talked about yet is my play style. So usually I like 11 players that I'm going to play pretty much every week without any rotation. And then on the bench, I don't put non-playing players, but I'll always go for cheap players like an Ayling, a Veltman, Livramento like we got on this. Like really cheap players that I don't really ever want to play, but they're there if I need them. But I think with the way things are going, with like I said, there's just not, like if we look at the midfield list, like and we order it by price, there's just really not too many players. Like, look at all these players around 7.9. Grealish, okay, Grant, he could be an option. We're going to talk about him in a sec. Mahrez, no. Havertz, no. Pulisic, no. Foden, maybe. But what happens when Gundogan's back? Pogba, no. Jota, maybe. Greenwood, I think, is just a long-term risk. Ziyech, no chance. Mason Mount, possibly, but I like double defence. Pepe, I'm not sure, is nailed enough. Gundogan's obviously injured. Torres just not playing enough. And then Zaha comes below the 6.9 threshold anyway. And at some point, Zaha might be an okay option. There's a few green fixtures in there, but there's just not enough. So I think going down to like the kind of Mbeumo price all the way up to Rafinha is probably the way to play it. So that lets you get 4 good defenders. So in this one I got Cancelo, Trent, Azpilicueta, Rudiger, and we'll talk about whether you should go for Diaz, Alonso, etc. in just a second. So if Mbeumo's got a bad fixture, or Saka or Rafinha have got bad fixtures, or even Jimenez and Antonio, you can play 4 at the back instead. I don't usually like doing that because, to be honest, I like reducing the amount of kind of decisions I have to make every week. I think it makes my game a little little bit easier and basically easier to manage. But right now, I just, like, there's been a few times recently, like when Antonio got injured, suspended, and Bamford got injured, where having a really good playing backup would have helped. And I think the money is there to do it. So I would definitely go with 4 good defenders, even if I've got 7 good attackers as well. And I think Brownhill has to be the midfielder now because he's playing every single week, 90 minutes nailed, and he's down to 4.4 million. So it just makes sense to go for him. If you had money left over, you could potentially upgrade him and have another like £5.5 million plus midfielder. But it depends how you set it out. Now I'm going to build a team more how I think I will go in game week 8. And by the way, if you're wildcarding this week, I think you just go for Lukaku over Ronaldo. Captaincy is very close. I think you just make that call. You don't want to start booking in transfers. There's nothing wrong with Ronaldo this week. I know people keep saying I'm biased, but like I thought he was a good captain against Newcastle. I thought he was a good captain against Villa. I think he's a good captain against Everton as well. Let's see if he does well. So if you've got him, don't panic. But if you're wildcarding, I would definitely make the switch. You save some money. And also you save yourself a transfer. So it's well worth doing. Before I tinker, right, let's talk about the defence. So you could go for expected minutes being king, in which case you'd probably go for Diaz over Cancelo. But Cancelo has played 90 minutes every single game, and he just is more attacking. So I think I would possibly, because I've got a good squad in this case, take the risk of going Cancelo over Diaz. With Chelsea defenders, I think it's a bit more difficult because I think there's, I don't know, like Alonso keeps going up in price, and if Alonso keeps playing, he's great. But all I think right now is, midweek, if he plays against Juventus, are we going to be absolutely sure that he then plays against Southampton, or are we going to think that Chilwell comes in? If Chilwell plays against Juventus, like this is the thing, this is what you just don't know for sure. If Chilwell plays against Juventus, is that a good thing for Alonso or a bad thing? Does that mean Tuchel now trusts him again in the big games? Or does it mean Alonso's nailed for the Premier League? We just don't know. So with Reece James out, I'm very keen on going for Azpilicueta because he's pretty much nailed anyway. I mean, no Chelsea player is probably going to play 38 out of 38 games, but he's as close as it gets anyway. And with Reece James out, yes, Hudson-Odoi or someone like that could play right wing back, but it could also easily be Rudiger, Thiago Silva, Christensen centre-backs with Azpilicueta right wing-back. Like, he's played there before under Tuchel. So I'm kind of coming around to the fact that I want him. I think he probably is the most nailed Chelsea defender anyway. And he's only 0.1 million more than Alonso, unless you got on Alonso last night before the price rise. And then Rudiger's pretty much nailed as well. So you get 2 good players that are going to tick over with nice points. I think Man City defence is better, but I think the fixtures are better for Chelsea. And also you can get into the defence a little bit cheaper. Like Rudiger is 0.5 million less than Diaz, which is why I don't have double Man City defence. But you could easily get to it, right? If you ditched like Antonio and Jimenez, so let's put them to kind of Tony, for example. I think Tony would be on my wildcard team for what it's worth. And you could even go Armstrong as well. So it's Southampton. Let's put him in. Then suddenly you got 3.3. You could upgrade Livramento all the way to double Man City defence. Like that could, like, and there's nothing really wrong with that team because you wouldn't necessarily have to play, like this week, you wouldn't play Armstrong. You'd bench him, but you'd just play your double Chelsea defence, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then one other probably. Or you could go 3-4, you'd play probably Cancelo and then play Tony and go 4-4-2. There's nothing wrong with that, and it gives you flexibility, and you've still got 1.4 million to spend. So you could even upgrade Brownhill to like an Everton player if you wanted to. Let's just put Gray in for now. And suddenly you've got a team with 15, well, apart from maybe Foster, long-term might not be an option, but 14 playing players, and you can just jig it around as you want each week on who to play. I don't think, for what it's worth, that's what I would do. But it's possible. It's possible to do this, which is what's ridiculous right now. So I'm thinking more of my Game Week 8 wildcard because I think whatever I do in 7, I've got to think ahead. So I think for me, I'd probably have Brownhill in. So I'm going to put him back in. I don't think I'd want to completely take money out of that spot. And then it's just a case of whether you want... I can't find Brownhill. That's what's taking me so long. It's just a case of whether you want that kind of £7 million forward up here. So if you want to keep Antonio, for example, then you've got to shave a little bit of money off. So we can put Antonio in there. So 0.3, I mean, that's just a Diaz downgrade. And even then, you don't have... Like, Livramento is not must-own by any stretch. Like, I know everyone's really excited about him. He's a really good enabler. But if you want options every week, you want bench options because you want to play the fixtures and you don't want to be forced into making a transfer because a player's only out for a week but you don't have a bench, then not having Livramento is not a problem. Like, these fixtures are good, and I'm not saying you shouldn't own him. He is the best defensive enabler, in my opinion. But you could just go for someone like Tierney instead. And again, still have 5 really good playing defenders with a really nice forward line and a decent midfield as well. Now, there are other midfielders you could go for kind of 7 million or less. So you could go for Zaha. You could take a punt on Torres. You could try and fit Grealish in here, which we'll do in a second. But the only other one really for me is Benrahma. But if I'm already considering not having Antonio because of the fixtures, I don't know if Benrahma is a must-keep anymore. I know people have got money in him. Like Sarr is another one. But the thing is, I think Leeds is good this week, and Everton and Southampton I don't mind at all. But then you got Arsenal, Man United, Leicester, Chelsea, Man City. So I don't think you're actually going to play him in too many games. He is nailed and he is talisman. He is 90-minute man. So again, it's not a problem having him in your squad. But I think probably these ones are the ones I'd look at. And Mbeumo, who's really good value, Saka and Rafinha. Like, Rafinha's always in my team, you know that. But Saka's fixtures are pretty good from game week 8 onwards. Like, you'd play him in most of these games. Liverpool's like the toughest fixture. And again, because you've got a squad like this, you can just bench him. So I think overall, even if the players are slightly different, this is the kind of way that I would go. If you want to fit in Grealish, you probably have to downgrade Antonio. I don't think I would go all the way down to... a non-playing player. I just don't think you need to. And then you've got to find a way to get Grealish. And again, this could be... You could even possibly get him in. Let's just try right now. This is going to be a very tinkering focused video. Let me see if I can fit him into this slot here. So we'd have to get rid of Tierney for Livramento. This might be too many downgrades, to be honest. Let me put Livramento in now. There we go. So you've still got to make up 0.3 minutes. I mean, some of you will already have... You'll have made enough cash where you can just afford this team without it. I guess the probable way is you probably have to downgrade someone to Brownhill, which is probably just the easiest way to do it. So let's put Brownhill in. And the reason I like Grealish is because the fixtures from Game Week 8 are just quite nice. Burnley, Brighton, Palace. Okay, Man United's not great, but then Everton, West Ham, Villa. Like, if he's going to keep playing every single week, like, this is a pretty nice fixture run to keep him for. And I think he is taking enough shots. He is still providing chances as well that I probably would want to fit him in. Plus, if any of the other 7.5 million midfielders become options, you can just go for them straight away. Like, Grealish down to them is a good play. So I think this is the kind of wildcard that I think I will go for next week. And because I like it for next week, I have to like it for this week as well. I know that this is not a great team for Game Week 7, which is why I don't want to do it, right? You've got Cancelo versus Man City. Tony has got West Ham away. And then obviously in Game Week 8, it's Chelsea at home anyway. So you might want to bench him. Adam Armstrong's got Chelsea this week. Grealish has got Liverpool. So it's not a great wildcard for this week, but you have to think long term. And that's why I think Game Week 8 wildcard is better. But this, I'm going to leave it on this. This is the kind of squad that I think I'll go with. You got, apart from, it's just Armstrong. It's Armstrong and Grealish versus like Antonio plus like a Sarr or someone like that. And you could argue that the Antonio Sarr way is better because with Grealish, we think he's nailed on right now, but is he forever going to be nailed on? That is the problem. I mean, maybe he is. Maybe that's overthinking it. But Grealish and Armstrong versus Sarr or even Gallagher plus Antonio could be the better way to go. Obviously, you'll have to make that decision. But I think double Chelsea defence and one Man City player and Trent, I'm definitely going for. Obviously, with this, you could just add another goalkeeper in. I've got to be honest, I've not massively looked at rotation, but another 4.5 goalie could be pretty decent. Actually, we'd probably put that to 5. So, you could go for Raya, for example, Ramsdale and Raya. Basically, just, if Ramsdale loses his spot at any point, at least you got to play him backup goalkeeper. I don't know how long Foster's going to keep his for. But, I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, if you discount Brownhill, this is 14 playing players. Even Livramento with good fixture runs could come in. Right now, it feels like this is the way to go. The thing is, things have changed so quickly in FPL already this season. 3 premiums, then 3.52, then 3 kind of 7.58 million forwards. Then Lukaku and Ronaldo join in. And it gets difficult to kind of keep up. But I think right now, this is the kind of squad that I go for. So I'll leave it there. I'll leave it up to you whether you want to go for, like I said, Armstrong, Grealish versus whatever. But that back line and that goalkeeper situation, maybe not with Raya, but definitely with Ramsdale, I think is what I'll do. Salah, Saka, all probably lots, and Lukaku for sure with a double defence. It's just, Alonso is more exciting than Azpilicueta for sure. But I think as soon as Chilwell plays one of the games, then I'd be in a panic. Like, is Alonso going to play the next one? I don't want that. I think with Azpilicueta and Rudiger, I just get more minutes. So that's probably what I'll go. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you hate about it as well in the comments below and what you would change. There we go. That is it for that one. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button. It really does help. We're on our way to 250,000 subscribers. And let me know below. Are you wildcarding Game Week 7, Game Week 8? Have you already used it or are you planning on doing it later on? I think for my team, there is a case to be made to do it this week, but I'd need a few injuries to come in. If the likes of Ailing or Shaw, like one of those two is fit, then I think I'd happily transfer out the other one and just roll one more week and then wildcard in Game Week 8 and just hit those fixtures properly. But yeah, let me know below. And lastly, if you haven't checked out Patreon, big thank you to everyone who's already kind of signed up and supported. If you want to check it out, link in the description below. Also, shout out to a lot of people who, since the last kind of video shout out I did, who've signed up. So Tim W, Shrewd AU, John T, Joseph B, Andy L, Joel M, Goodmunda O as well. I nearly messed up a few of these names. Hopefully I didn't make too much of a bad job about it. Thank you for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.